Hi, my name is Luke. Welcome back to another video on this channel. Today I will show you how to code a very simple RSI Expert Advisor in MQL5 so you're able to get results like this. At the end of the video we will also do a backtest on the strategy, so make sure that you stick around to the end so you can see that. Before we jump into the coding, let me just quickly explain what we're trying to achieve with this Expert Advisor. Okay, so here we have a gold chart, and at the bottom of the chart we have an RSI indicator. So what we want to do is buy whenever the RSI enters the oversold region down here, meaning that we want the EA to enter a buy position when the RSI line drops below 30. And then the same in reverse, we want to sell whenever the RSI enters this overbought region, or when the RSI line crosses above 70. So this indicator will usually work pretty well in ranging markets, obviously not always, but majority of the time. Remember that trading is a game of probabilities. We're not trying to get a 100% win rate, rather we are trying to stack the odds in our favour as much as possible. We would also add a stop loss and a take profit so we can test different targets, etc. And we will also add the option to exit the trades on a reverse signal. So for example, we close a buy position and open a sell position when the RSI line crosses above 70, and we would close a sell position and open a buy position when the RSI line crosses below 30. Okay, so now you understand what we're going to be doing in this video. Let's jump straight into the meta editor and start coding. First, click the IDE icon at the top of your chart. This will open the meta editor. From here, click New, Expert Advisor from Template. Let's give the file a name. I'll just call mine RSI EA, but you may call yours whatever you like. It doesn't really matter. Once you have named the file, click Next, Next, and Finish. Okay, so first we need to clean up the template. We delete all the comment lines as we don't need them, and I also like to adjust my curly brackets. Now all we should have left are these three functions: the onInit function, the onDinit function, and the onTick function. We will start by adding some inputs at the top. The first input will be the magic number, so we use a static input of type long. Input magic number, and let's predefine this input with any random number. The number can literally be any number you want it to be. It's just so we know when this EA has traded in case you're using other EAs at the same time. The next input will also be a static input of type double for the lot size. Let's name it input lot size, and then we predefine this with 0.01. So each trade will be placed using 0.01 lots. Again, we can change this later in the settings if needed. We can also write a comment next to this, lot size. Now the third input will be for the RSI itself. So this time we don't write static because we want to be able to change this in an optimization later on. So we instead use input of type integer. The name will be input RSI period, and we predefine this with a default value of, let's say, 21. We also write a comment next to the input RSI period. Again, it just makes it look cleaner in the EA settings. We also need to define the RSI indicators levels. So for the next input, we also use an integer. The level is always between 0 and 100. We only want to specify one level, and then the other one will be the same distance on the other side. So we predefined the RSI level as 70. This will be the upper level. We will now calculate the lower level from the upper RSI level's value. The RSI only needs these two inputs, but we also want to add a stop loss and a take profit to our EA. So to do this, we use an input of type integer because the stop loss and take profit will be in points. We'll set the stop loss to a default value of, say, 200 points. We also comment stop loss in points, and we also want the option to deactivate this stop loss, so 0 would mean off. Then of course we also need a take profit, which will also be in points. We set the take profit to a default value of, say, 100 points, and we comment take profit in points, and also here 0 means that we don't want to use a TP. Now we want to add a switch so that we can activate that we want to close the positions at a reverse signal instead of using the TP or stop loss. So if we are in a buy position and we get the signal to open a sell trade, we want to close out the buy position and then open the sell trade. This will be an input of type bool. We can only use true or false for a bool. Let's maybe call it input close signal. We can add a comment next to the input, maybe close trade on opposite signal. Let's now add some global variables. First we need a handle for our RSI indicator, then we need a dynamic array as a buffer for the RSI values. We also need a MQL tick variable for the current tick, and then a C trade object so we can open, close and potentially modify positions easily. We also need to add 2 date time variables, so we only open 1 trade per bar, one for the last buy bar open time and one for the last sell bar open time, and we set them both to 0. In order to use the C trade object, we need to include the trade class header. Now click compile, there should be no errors or warnings. Now let's move on to the onInit function. So as soon as you load the EA, it validates the user inputs. It checks the magic number is above 0. And it checks that the lot size is greater than 0. It also checks the lot size is not set to an unreasonably large amount, like 1,000 lots. It then checks if the RSI period is greater than 1. And also checks if the RSI level is less than 100 but greater than 50, because it represents the upper band from which we'll derive the lower band. We allow the stop loss and take profit to be 0, meaning that we don't use one, but they must not be negative. And if any one of these checks fail, then we simply alert the user and we stop the initialization. Let's now quickly compile again. Now the onInit has checked all the inputs, we set the magic number on the trade object so we can later filter positions by it. Then we create the RSI handle using the current symbol, current period, the predefined RSI period and price close. We check if the handle creation succeeded. If not, then we alert the user and we stop the initialization. Finally, we set the buffer to work as series so it's easier to read the latest values. And let's now compile again. Now in the onDinit function, we release the indicator handle if it's valid. Let's compile again. Now let's move down to the onTick function. So anything stored in this function will be calculated on every new tick, whereas with the onInit function it's calculated only on the initialization. So when you load the EA, it only does it once. The onTick does it on every new tick. So first we fetch the current tick so that we can have the bid and ask prices. If that fails, we print an error and return. Now we read the RSI values. We copy two values from the RSI buffer, both the current one and the previous one, and then we store them in our array. If we fail to fetch those two values, then we simply print an error and return. In order to verify these values, we open the strategy tester, we select the RSI EA, enable visual mode and click start. The value shown in the data window for the latest bar should match buffer at index 0. The previous value should match the buffer at index 1. Right, so we can confirm we have the correct data. Before we write the entry conditions, we should add a few helpers, counting how many buy and sell positions are open for this magic number. normalizing those prices to the symbol's tick size. And also a way to close the positions. So for example, we close all the trades at once, or we close only the buys, or we close only the sells. Now we will add the logic for the opening and closing of positions. First, we want to count the open positions. If that fails, then we return. When checking for a buy entry, we only consider a buy if there's no open buy position. We look for a crossover into the lower band. We check if the previous RSI value is above the derived lower level, which is 100 minus our upper level input. And the current RSI value is at or below that lower level. We also guard this with bar time so that we open at the very most 1 trade per bar. Then, when a valid buy signal appears, we will record the current bar's open time for the buys. If we have the close on opposite signal function enabled, then we close any open sell positions before opening a buy position. We then calculate our stop loss and take profit in points. Obviously 0 means that it's switched off and we don't want to use one. The stop loss will be below the current price for buys. And obviously the take profit will be set above. Then we need to normalize both of these prices to the symbol's tick size. And open the buy position at the current ask price with our chosen lot size. Also apply in the stop loss and take profit if we've chosen to use them. Now for a sell entry, we just need to mirror this logic, but again only if there's no open sell position. First, we look for a crossover into the upper band. We check that the previous RSI value is at or below the upper level and that the current value is above it. We then guard this the same as before with the sell bar open time, so there's only ever 1 trade per bar. If the close on opposite signal function is enabled, then we close any open buy positions before opening a sell position. We then calculate our stop loss and take profit in points. We set the stop loss above the price and the TP below. We normalize these values and then open the sell position at the current bid price. Now let's compile, and if there are no errors or warnings, we can move on to the testing. Okay, so there's no errors or warnings, so let's now switch back over to the MetaTrader 5 platform. Once you've done that, click View at the top of your chart, select Strategy Tester, select the file that we have just created, set the model into every tick, and make sure that you have visual mode enabled. We will start the test using 100 points for the take profit and 200 points for the stop loss, basically the default values. Click Start, and let's see how well it performs with these default settings. So for the backtest that I showed at the start of this video, the settings were the RSI period set to 8, the level was set to 95, we use no stop loss and a take profit of 50 points, and we have the closed trades on opposite signal function set to true. The symbol was Euro USD, Now if I untick the visual mode for a faster result, we can see that the equity curve looks good. Obviously a nice looking equity curve that does nothing but go up in a straight line is appealing to most, but you shouldn't trade this blindly. Personally, I don't like to see it go straight up in a straight line, as it's not realistic to me. I like to see curves in the equity graph, so it looks more like a zigzag than a straight line, or like a set of stairs going up. So you are accounting for losses and everything else. But overall, I am still impressed by the RSI's performance. That is it for this video. If you have enjoyed this, and if this video has helped you in any way, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. If you have any questions or recommendations for ways that we can improve this strategy, please feel free to drop a comment, and I always try my best to respond to all comments as quickly as possible. Other than that, you can reach out to me via my website. You will find a link in my channel description, and I'll also leave a link below in the video description. You can also message me on Telegram. But for now, trade safe, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.